Oh, hey, welcome back, everybody. This is, I guess, season 2. We'll call it that. I don't know. We'll go season 2. It's finally here. Our money mindset series, and we're gonna blast it off with something that came from Twitter, came from the universe, the Twitterverse, which you're not familiar with.
Okay.
But my guy.
That's extreme.
What, are you on it?
No.
No. See. So you have less experience.
Okay.
But great conversations had. FinTwit is a legit thing. But our guest, Josh Barbin here with Alternative FP, another CFP, by the way, ladies and gents. I'm going to let him divulge who he is, what he's about, what his firm's about, what he looks for in the middle of Wyoming. Like I don't even know. I know kind of where Cody is, but it's like in the middle of nowhere. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss the hot topic that brought us to this conversation that we came from on Twitter, and then we'll have some other tidbits in there for you. So, Josh, tell us about you, your background, where you're from, and then we'll get into your firm.
Cool. Thanks, Stoy. Thanks, Lisa. So I'm originally a Pennsylvania guy. So PA, I think it's one of the best states in the country. I'm not gonna lie. Just like on a balance perspective. Virginia's up there. See, this is why the way I look at like how you rank the states. And every state has things that are good about it, but Pennsylvania has a balance. You get Philly, you have Pittsburgh, and then the inside it's like call it Pennsylvania. You know, you get a nice balance in Pennsylvania. Virginia's similar. Western Virginia is much different, but then you get DC area. I've never been on the West Coast, California, and stuff like that. So I don't know how those states compare. But anyways, I'm in Wyoming now, like you said, and I'm in Cody. It's like they're still living like cowboy land. Like they really are trying to maintain that image. And like when you drive into town, it says like "Don't California or Cody" on a big sign. Like it's sort of disrespectful in a lot of ways. But it's cool. My wife is black. We're like an interracial family, I guess you call us, and so it's interesting. I mean, navigating like in a really white area, what I would call a white area,
you're not going to have very many black people in Wyoming, let alone Cody, Wyoming.
Yeah. So, but like we've overall been treated really kindly. You'd be surprised there's a lot of transients here. So it's not that people are totally like only been in Wyoming. There's a lot of people that have been in other places, but it's been good. Wyoming's a nice place to run a business. Wyoming is just a good business-friendly state. So on that front, it's been good. So that's kind of
what brought you to Wyoming, or the two of you to Wyoming.
I don't know if I want to go into this.
All right.
I mean, let's just start out. Okay, Kanye. But anyways, I'm not going to go too deep into that. Yeah. But we'll just leave it there.
That's fine.
But I've had a long-standing relationship out here in Cody for about 10, 12 years now. And then, but I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah.
But I will say that.
Absolutely. So your firm Alternative FP, you work with your wife, which we just discussed. Our wives work together, and we were both like, I don't know if we could cross that bridge for them to work for us. But talk us through your firm, your vision, and why, enlighten us a little more on the XRP community, enlighten us why you do and why you're named Alternative FP, by the way.
Yeah, so let's start with Ashley. My relationship with Ashley in terms of work is, I think anytime a couple is going to work together, they have to like have clear boundaries of where that, because and my wife and I are both strong personalities. Like you don't want to see us fight, basically. Like, it's not that it's like super ugly, but it's just like we both have really strong opinions, and she hates the way I work. She just hates it. And she's like a task person, and I'm like a think person. I like to like sit on something and really think it out.
That's like a perfect partnership.
Yeah. Well, it's good until it like bleeds into like personal life, and then it's like your work fight becomes your home fight, and it just sucks. So no, Ashley really does the marketing side of the business. Like, that's pretty much what she does. I pretty much handle all everything else, basically. I'm a solo firm, small practice. I work, like you said, with the XRP community, which is interesting. I mean, it's been a risky play, let's put it that way, to say the least, to build a business around a single company, around a single digital asset called XRP. I mean, to even try to build a practice around Bitcoin, which has a lot more like stability than XRP, if you can hardly believe that like you could call Bitcoin stable,
Right.
but comparatively, because XRP is and Ripple are both pretty much under fire right now from the SEC, who regulates us, you know, and Wyoming regulates me, but generally speaking, the SEC is suing Ripple, who created XRP, and saying it's an unregistered security. It's not a crypto. It's not. It's a stock that they're selling in the guise of a crypto asset. So that makes my work interesting because like it's, you know, the SEC pretty much saying it's illegal, but the problem is that they don't get to decide that at the end of the day. That's not how our legal system works. So they've made a claim. They've made a legal claim that it is illegal, but right now it's in the Southern District of New York. The court case is in the Southern District of New York, and a judge named Annalisa Torres is going to decide on that matter March 31st, 2023, most likely. Summary judgment is scheduled for that. So like there's a whole layers of legal stuff.
It's legal stuff, right?
Yeah. So, well, this is the way that I look at it too. I just put an article out like 2 days ago about this. I see about 90% odds, and this probably sounds aggressive, but I see a 90% odds that XRP comes out of this positively. Whether Ripple wins or loses the case, I almost see it as not mattering. There's about a 10% chance in my mind that XRP gets utterly destroyed to zero. That's the risk that people entering this investment or this asset just have to accept, that there is a definite total loss of principal risk. But my analysis of the case says it probably won't happen like that, and it probably will be positive. One, it's a big risk as an advisory firm. Crypto, as you guys know, doesn't have a lot of legal clarity, first of all, just to be advising on. And then we have like this super risky asset because it's in a lawsuit. It's not just like non-clarity. It's like the SEC is being very clear what they think.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, and I'm just like that kind of guy, I guess, that I don't think they're right, first of all. I think Ripple has a promise of being one of the most valuable companies on the planet. And obviously I hold Ripple shares, so I'm biased when I say that. Here's the thinking behind this, and I'll shut up about this in a second, but I just want to kind of put some framework around why I've narrowed my business so tightly. In 2018, XRP went up to about $3.40, $3.34, I think it was. Ripple owns right now about 60 billion of those. And if you just do a little times table there, and you times $3.30 times 60 billion, the valuation of that asset on Ripple's balance sheet, now they say it's an off-balance sheet asset, they own it. So that's over 180 billion right there, just at that 2018 high. Now look at Bitcoin. 2018, it landed about 20,000. After 2018, it went up to 69 or 70,000 almost. So it was at like almost 4x. So if we did the same thing for XRP, let's say it was $3.34, it went up to 4x times, that's $12, times that by 60 billion. To me, we're now looking at a Google, Amazon, Apple, something like that. And SEC wants to say you can't play. Well, you're going to have to hash that out in court, buddy, because like, to say, and this is, I guess, the alternative side, which this probably even sounds a little reckless to you guys. I know you guys dabble in the alternatives quite a bit. But that's the thinking, that's the rationale. I think it's all legal. I'm disclosing everything I own and my position. Obviously, I'm biased. If you take that risk, you do run the risk of losing your investment entirely. But this is the play that I've made in the space, and we'll see if it pays off.
Yeah. Do you believe, though, that there should be more regulations around that market, the whole industry over there?
It's awful, dude. It really is awful what is allowed to happen in the crypto community. And I am an outsider in the XRP community for this point of view, because a lot of people say, well, do your own research, and you should understand, if you know the risk you should be taking. And in reality is you don't know the risk. The SEC generally regulates securities, like they give the investor the benefit of the doubt. But how do they regulate? They regulate with disclosure. They regulate with registration is basically just showing your financials.
Right.
I think there will be the compromise with Ripple will probably be there's going to be some disclosure. You're not going to be able to sell to retail anymore. They're going to restrict what they can do with that XRP. But overall, I do think, generally speaking, like any crypto, there's got to be similar types of regulation. I'll tell you why. There's so many pump and dumps I see. The people who own 95% of an asset, and this is what SEC is kind of coming at Ripple for too. Right. And they own 95% of an asset. They go onto Twitter, get a bunch of influencers to talk about it, to say how good it is. They start pumping the price. People get excited about it, and then they sell it all. You know, that's what a Ripple is kind of being accused of too. So I am aware of like the potential moral hazard of Ripple. I think they're doing it a little more honestly, just my analysis of it. But yeah, I think those regulations do need to happen, and they should be coming soon.
Yeah, I believe they need to for cryptos to continue to grow. The uncertainty, I mean, there's so much illegal activity top to bottom with it that is happening, which happens in every unregulated industry, not just crypto. Like, let's be real. This has happened on for generations, but it needs to happen. We were just talking to our marketing team today about a new blog, and I had mentioned this a lot, and I want to get your point of view on this. I know this is a little off topic, but I also had a Twitter conversation about this with FinTwit. What is your belief of the accredited investor rule?
Well, that's part of my thing. I'm not a millionaire at this point yet, God willing, soon. But like, you know, generally speaking, I only have the opportunity to invest in Ripple because of the SEC accreditation being Series 65, or the FINRA, sorry. And I don't think it's a terrible rule. And again, it kind of comes back to the like ability to con people, especially if you're talking private markets. Well, now you have no disclosure. Like, I had to invest in Ripple sort of blind. Like, I don't know their financials. I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scene. You can piece some things together, but reality is the private market, and they don't have to tell you. And I took that risk. So I don't think it's a terrible rule, but I think there are a lot of people who are getting a little frustrated by it. And then what if you take crypto, you know, accredited only? That could also add some additional frustration. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a shit rule, honestly. Flat out, think it's a shit rule. I understand. I was waiting for you to say that. I understand the premise around it. Now, the disclosure stuff, I think you want to keep that. I think all of investment should have those disclosures and regulations. That's fine. But the accreditation part, basically, the government has decided, or SEC has decided, that because you have enough money, you're intelligent enough to make that decision, right? Which also on the flip side means because you're broke, poor, or don't have $1.1 million and make $250,000, that you're not intelligent enough to make these decisions for yourself to build your wealth and your net worth. That's the part I do not agree with.
Is it about intelligence, or is it about that they have other money if
it's
something
both.
happens?
It's both. It comes down to their ability to understand what they're getting into and the ability to take on that loss,
risk, right.
that loss. But part of that is because in our industry, we've deemed alternatives as super risky, when I know a ton of alternatives that are less risky than the stock market. So how do we look at that?
What kind of alts are you using to kind of actually de-risk a portfolio as opposed to increase the risk?
So we're heavy in real estate, obviously. We're heavy in preferred debt as well. And then there's a handful of banking instruments out there that are fully collateralized by someone else's, like by the bank and stuff. So there's alts out there that are in the private sector that allow to de-risk, right? Real estate itself on a risk level is less risky than the S&P 500. So
yeah, definitely.
So why
leverage? Usually people use leverage with real estate.
Correct. Yep. And leverage comes into play. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there's obviously in the alt space, there's 100 different ways to do things. But that's what I get to is like, it's less risky than someone going ahead and going on a meme stock streak. But that's okay, right? They can go do that and hold the bag later, but they can't go get into a property with multimillionaires and just put a little $10,000 in and start to get into the real estate game because they're not accredited, right? From a regulated body, of course. Like, why is that? That should, to me, shouldn't be the case. If they, whether it's a test or whatever, that how it should be. It should not be tied to a dollar amount, in my opinion.
Let's bring it to prudence, right? I mean, that is the standard that we all operate under, us three. You know, for people who don't understand this, like for, you know, investors who don't really think about prudence much, prudence is kind of a, you know, it's sort of like this like reasonable man who, you know, reasonable man who does reasonable things. I have to try to convince the SEC or my regulators that what I'm doing is prudent, right? Like,
Right.
And I think, but if you look at trust law, it basically says there's no assets that are imprudent. There can be imprudent decisions, but there's not, generally speaking, there's not any asset in itself that is imprudent to use. Is over leverage or over concentration potentially imprudent? Yeah, that probably is. And that's why I think it does come back to asset allocation is the big question, not necessarily what investment is prudent or imprudent. I'll play the devil's advocate for a second for the SEC. When you open up the private markets, though, first of all, it's harder to get disclosure. So it's harder to know actually what you're dealing with. The second thing is there's just such a swath, right? There's such a swath of possibles. Where in your publicly traded markets, you've kind of weeded it out to, you know, if you're not doing, especially if you're not doing penny stocks or something like that, it's like a more narrow pool. So I'd say those are your big risk if you open up the accredited investor role to everybody, that now choosing becomes a lot harder. And now I have much less information potentially.
Yeah, I agree. There needs to be a rule. It just needs to be where more people can participate. I mean, even with the new accreditation rule, Reg D rules opened a little more too, to allow more non-accredited investors, right? So they're trying to do a little bit with, yeah.
Like for startups and stuff that you get, like that Reg A during the Obama administration also. So you can now do crowdfunding. Like you can do that even as a non-accredited.
Exactly.
But there's a limit on how much you can do.
Yeah, and those got upped. Don't quote me. It used to be 35. I think now it's up towards 100. So like they've opened it, right, through that Reg A. That way they can't control it. And I'm glad we're moving in that direction.
You still can't do pre-IPO with.
Exactly, right. There's a lot of limitations still. But that's my thoughts on.
You know what's interesting about that also, just one more thing, is that a lot of companies are staying private longer. I mean, Impossible Foods, for example.
Right.
Looks like a pretty cool idea, cool company that I'm sure people would like to at least speculate with if they could, but it's just, they're still private.
Yep.
And Ripple's been private for 10 years, I think. So, you know, that's a long life cycle that you just don't have an opportunity to be involved in that market. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
It is.
I can see both sides of that argument a little bit. And crypto might even come into this space as well.
Yeah,
they might come in that argument.
I think they will. Like ultimately, my gut says that's where they're going to go lean towards. They already have it there. To
the accredited space.
It's the easiest route for them, to start to wean this thing out, unless they create a whole different crypto rule and stuff, which would be crazy, but it'd be interesting.
Well, here's a little bit more on that. Like, you know, Ripple itself, others, the SEC even has said on some like Ethereum and Bitcoin that it's a commodity, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop me, even as an uncredited investor, to go and speculate with commodities futures.
Correct.
I'll lose money almost every time, but like, there's nothing to stop me from doing it.
Right.
You know, so it may go under commodities regs and remain, you know, I think what they're distinguishing right now, or they're trying to distinguish and use Ripple as like the base case for this, is to say that there's certain projects that are more like securities, there's certain that are more like commodities. Bitcoin's already got decisiveness that it's a commodity.
Right.
All the others are pretty much still up for grabs.
Yeah, that tracks. Any thoughts on accreditation rule?
No, I mean, I think I see both sides too. Like, I think it makes sense to have some money to be able to play with and decide where you want to go, and then I see where you want more opportunity and access for other people to be able to have that. I think maybe they're trying to strike a balance with that. Can they go lower in income and things like that potentially? But I fall on I think you need to have some guardrails. I fall on some regulation I think is important. When there's no regulation, it's just a freeway of craziness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one more thought. Thanks, Lisa, for kind of sparked something in my, like, this comes down to my philosophy generally about investment advice. There's a guy named Ashwin Chhabra. He wrote the Aspirational Investor, manages Jim Simon's hedge fund, like he's the portfolio manager. But anyways, he created this, what he called a wealth allocation strategy. He said basically, like the prudent rule basically kind of narrows you into the stock market or bond market, right. The market portfolio, right? And he said the problem with that is that people are much more risk averse than the market portfolio. And they also want to seek opportunities to speculate, to gamble. Like they want to take big risks. Or the problem with the market portfolio will never make you rich, like in the terms of rich. Yeah. You cannot become rich off the market. That's just my perspective. And I'm not saying that some investments couldn't make you rich, but generally, if you can go in the stock market, build a diversified 30+ stock portfolio or bonds, you never will become rich off of that. You can build a long-term, comfortable lifestyle with that investment. Unquestionably, that will succeed almost every time. But what it won't do is won't make you rich, and it won't protect you if you have a really, if you have liquidity needs or you're just afraid of the market portfolio will whip you around like
right.
And it just will. And you got to be able to accept that. So what he tried to do with his strategy was say, I'm going to build a safety bucket, use cash, gold, short-term bonds, whatever. I'm going to build a middle bucket. This is my market portfolio. I'm going to build a wealth bucket where I can take aspirational risk that might actually make me wealthy. That's kind of the philosophy I brought into my firm as well. I mean, that's my way I'm going to justify it if I've ever pressed on prudence, that this is a prudent strategy depending on somebody's goals. Now, if they told me, I have no desire to become rich, I was like, well, get the heck out of XRP. Because you think I'm going to go broke, you're going to make some big money, but
right.
That's it. Like, and that's like starting a business as well. 95% of business owners go broke, but people still love starting businesses. Right. Even though the odds are so stacked against them, mm-hmm. It's because it could produce something that produces a higher return than your market return over the long term.
Yeah, and that leads us into, the meat of our conversation about the emotional and psychology and the mindset of inherently as humans, that's what we want. We feel. That's what we want and feel to do, right? Ultimately, is either take on those risks or figure it out, dip our toe, all of those things that, in our side can build rich wealth quickly or over time. So let's get into that a little bit. So this conversation started because I had tweeted out, most people have an unhealthy relationship with money that drives their emotions and other relationships. I said, prove me wrong, but wealth building is 90% positive money mindset. And your first tweet was maybe the inverse. Most people have an unhealthy relationship with their emotions that drives their relationship with money. And then my last, or not my last response, but my response that then got us into talking about this would be maybe, but emotions and behavior change with a healthy money relationship. Not sure that the inverse is completely true. So that's where we're at with that. Let's dive more into that. So what were your...
now there's 3 people. So there's going to be a side maybe.
And now maybe a side or a third. Maybe there's a third.
Maybe there's a third perspective. I don't know.
We'll get a 4th side. So.
Right. We could have just went to, and did spaces. Maybe this thing could have got really buck wild. But talk me through and talk everyone through your side, your point of view initially in that conversation. Why is this?
Yeah, initially, I think that's a good point. Because I think through that thread, you sort of showed me the other side of that coin that made a lot of sense as well. I think it is a 2-sided coin. Like, I think money is partially like culture and belief around it, like shapes a big part of it. But I guess the initial argument, and that's basically what you were saying. I think I took the other side of it, maybe just for fun, but I think the side of it I was taking was if your emotions are not in a good place, it's going to lead to your money decision making in potentially in negative ways. Which I think, just to try to nuance that a little bit, basically, you could say, like, if you have a good belief system around money, that it will lead to healthy emotions. Like, that was kind of what you were saying. I was saying, if you don't have healthy emotions, internally kind of healthy mindset just around life, then it's going to affect your money, even if you do good with money. I was kind of thinking of the rich person who's just not happy, or I use an example of fear on there. Like people get afraid that this is the response I gave is people are afraid of running out of money, and that drives them to work more, not take enough risk, and then become unhealthy in other areas. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the way that I put it into two questions. Like, why are you afraid of running out of money? That's where I would start with that conversation. Or maybe this is the point I was making is, well, what are you afraid of? Those are the questions I might start with, which I think are more just emotional health questions rather than money questions. Or maybe they are emotional health questions first and then money questions.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay. Any thoughts you want?
I was waiting for your side.
Oh, I got mine.
Okay.
I'm here. But go with yours since you're the third party in this combo.
Well, I think I have two baby girls, one in 3, and emotions are really high in my 3-year-old right now. And she's building all these different things, building different systems, different emotions. You know, we try to label them. Are you scared? Are you happy? Are you sad? And I personally think that's the foundation. And then there's other things that come with it over time. So I'm on the side of you need to build these emotions over time, healthy, unhealthy. Money starts coming in, and where it gets crossed is the money story. Like we always talk about, you know, what's your earliest money story? And that travels with you throughout your life, and it builds and it shows up in different ways. How you handle money, how you save, how you spend with your partner, all of those things kind of intertwine. So I think money gets intertwined really early, but I think emotions are there from the start. You know, even now, Maggie, my 1-year-old, where she's starting to be like frustrated. Well, we think it's frustrated. She's like stomping her feet in her fists. We're like, "Are you frustrated?" And she's like nods her head, yes. So I personally think the emotions are there. Money gets intertwined, and then it stays with you and builds in different ways that you'll see later on.
So, very good point. And my whole background of why of this, right? We just went through it with one of our VIP sessions and her trauma. I've had a lot of childhood trauma, but we are so far removed from a society that is financially educated, both emotionally and just financially, that everything that happens is entwined with that. So kids' emotions, some of it's genetic. Your genetics can be changed by your stress. Your stress is changed by money. You have gotten that passed down from how many generations down to what degree does that start or stop, right? Our children, they feel our stress, and most of our stress comes from money. Even if we control our emotions, they can sense stress. That has been proven. So if we're not taken care of because we haven't took care of our childhood trauma, which came from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, or whatever, because they were never financially educated correctly, then we are inherently always going to be passing that down until we can buck that whole entire system. And so as we get older, we rely on that trauma. Society doesn't do us any justice. Our financial education or education system doesn't do us justice because they're not teaching it. Everything when you watch a movie, media, all of that inherently is driving more of that negative mindset. And then our emotions with everything in life act in more to that. And so that's where I get with it is I'm going back very, very long ago when it comes to the financial education and money route, because now it's been rooted into us no matter what. Can you live life today without money? No, you can't. Back 100 years ago, 50 actually probably, but back 100 years ago, you could. So our life now is so intertwined, it is in our fibers that we don't even know if our children's emotions are being driven from our own emotions that we have derived but where did that start from? And so to change that whole narrative, we got to focus on money mindset and money education so we can start a generation off taking care of themselves both mentally and physically with money, which is also, there's mental health in there too. But we are now in a generation where we can take care of mental health and take care of the money mindset all at the same time. And if they're not taking care of it at the same time, one's going to always do this with each other. That's my point.
Let me throw some counterpoint in here. You know, I think where maybe I started the thread from, and I'm going to come back to it here, is think about this weird statistic that, you know, most people can't pass generational wealth. I'm talking you're really wealthy. None of you guys deal with some really wealthies, and they most struggle with passing generational wealth. What's the big reason? It's not money education necessarily. It's communication. It's just poor family communication. It's not a money thing necessarily. It's bad communication. Here's another example. And I would like to explore the root of that. Like, why is that communication bad even when the money's good? The other example that I kind of have been, it's like personal to me and the people that I work with. I think a lot of people are really excited about like the XRP thing because they really do expect that they're going to get a lot more money than they put into it. They really do. And that's, you know, that's undecided at this point. We'll see what happens. But I've really been harping on people to keep your head on a swivel, like understand that this is not going to make you happy. Even if you get more money, like it's going to be happy for a moment. It's going to be like crazy happy for a moment. You get a lot more money, but
then it goes away.
Why do lottery winners
go broke?
Terrible.
Right.
They end up terrible. They end up poor. They hate it. Their emotions like end up in a lot worse place, and they didn't have money. So maybe I'm taking this a little bit different direction than I think maybe your original point. It's like the education is important. I mean, nobody's going to disagree with that. And sometimes people make really bad decisions just based on bad education. But I think sometimes people also just make bad decisions out of like an emotional unhealthiness that they think money is going to solve. And then it shows up that it doesn't. And it leads, and you can even see this when people were born into money, where money was just baseline, and they have bad relationships. They kind of see their money as a burden. They don't have, you know, they maybe drug problems or whatever it is. And I don't think that's necessarily, you know, these people have the best family offices and they still are having these issues around money. They're different issues, but they're still issues. And it's like, I think potentially, I guess this is maybe the point, is that the issues are just like the big thing. Like this is what I'm trying to work with my clients on, is like, and the people that I work with, it's like, get your mind off the money a little bit. Like you got to stay focused here. Like what's important? Family's important. Like building that strong communication is important. Getting in a healthy space. I think then managing money should become a little bit easier. Now there's an education part where you just don't know and you do stupid stuff. Well, that's another thing. But I feel like the first is more important than the second. And maybe it's just for fun's sake, but yeah.
I mean, it is, right? Ultimately. And in your conversation there, you were talking about money as in money itself. I'm talking about your relationship with that money, right? A lot of rich people have a negative money relationship anyway. They have the money, it's a baseline, it's a burden. That's a negative money relationship. And that comes down to, for me, comes back to education. If I have been educated to understand how things work, how they change or could change your emotions, now I have some tool to control or know what my emotions are going to go into a situation, right?
How do rich people, how do they end up in that state you just talked about there, where they make money, obviously made a lot of money, but they have a negative like mindset about like, how does that even happen?
Money controls people, right? Money controls people. It has since, I mean, it's like Keeping Up with the Jetsons, that type of philosophy, right? And that's enrooted. Where that came from, good Lord, who knows? But when you are rich, not wealthy, right? Those are different. When you are rich, it's all about money. It's all about more money, more money, more money. I don't care how much I spend, more money, because that means I'm better than you, right? Where that's completely negative, right? And money is controlling their life. It's those other people that figure it out and are wealthy, whereas I control my money. I dictate what things happen and how they off and how we operate.
What's the pathway? And at least I'm going to see the wheels turning
Yeah,
over there.
I did too. Did you see that? You could feel it.
So what's the pathway to like making that shift from rich to wealthy? Like, how does that actually happen on a practical level with a real human being?
Oh, you asking me that?
Well, you had your wheels were turning. So
My wheels were turning on the other. So, I mean, I think you guys are like getting into like the spiritual space. I'll be honest. It's like the inner work you need to do with yourself to be okay with who you are, where you are, and then also make those decisions to make changes in your life if you're not where you want to be. I mean, you may not be where you want to be living, your career, money, with a partner. You may not be happy with that. And it's a lot of inner work. And I think there's some education part to it. There's the knowledge part. But then there's the time you got to take on yourself to do that. Now, Stoy and I were athletes. I don't know. Josh, did you play any sports? No big deal.
Right. I mean,
no big deal. No big deal. But like a lot of the mental work, before the game, there was a lot of prep put in before the game, practice put in before the game. And people have their own ways of doing it. You hear about meditation, you hear about taking vacation, going to Hawaii. Stoy likes to go to Hawaii. But there's just a lot of stuff you got to do personally, I think, to move forward. And money is intertwined with everything. I still think the emotions are coming first, though. That's gonna, as the more we get into this conversation, I'm going on the emotion side.
Well, I mean, by just how we're born, obviously emotions come first. Like you don't get born with a dollar bill and understanding of knowledge.
It's when like dropping dollar bills on the baby.
It's from that time that you understand what money is that then it's super intertwined and there's no way back, right? At what age that is, I have no idea.
What do you mean no way back?
So as soon as you understand and learn what money is, you're going to have an emotional attachment already right there, unless your family, hopefully your parents, have done what you just said, that prep work before you get into the game. The game is when you understand what money is, you're in the game. Most people never understand that they're in the game of that. Like they just never had prep work, never practiced. All of a sudden they're thrown into a game that they cannot understand. Now they're sinking, they're floating, and hopefully they learn it, right? Or hire an expert like us three to help them through that. But as soon as you get in the game and you don't know the rules or how to operate, then you just snowball from there. And then the emotions and all that tie into that. But that's where I would go with it is when are you in the game? When does that start? And that starts when your knowledge of what money is and how it works somewhat in your life. That's when the game is. Have you done enough prep work, or has your parents done enough prep work for you when you get in that game? And so back to your question, Josh, you had asked, what is something practical that people can do, right? Well, toot our own horns, hire a professional. Obviously, we can help you through all that situation. Had to put that out there, right? Go visit alternativefp.com, go blackmammoth.com. Okay, we'll get all that out of the way. But back to your point, Lisa, is they need to sit down and just figure out what money means to them. I think we ask that all the time with our clients is, what does that root mean? What does money mean to you? And does it run your life? Go ahead.
This is a question. I think it might support your point a little bit here, Stoy, which is, can you have an emotionally healthy household that doesn't have good money communications, right? I almost feel like I grew up in that sort of household a little bit. My parents are awesome. Love my parents. They were great parents. We didn't talk about money a lot though. And some probably stuff I had to work through just habit wise and thinking around money, probably maybe some negative stuff, even though generally speaking, I feel really emotionally healthy and got raised in a way to make me emotionally healthy and healthy communication in our family and, ability to talk. And so we weren't perfect by any means, but it was good. I mean, but generally, I will say that like there wasn't a lot of talk about money. We didn't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Which has its own
Has its
ways
own,
to show up later.
right.
I mean, like you just said. But I think you can have healthy relationships and you can have something that still bothers you. It has an itch, it's like you can have a 90% good and the 10% you're still working through, whether it's money or something else.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. We're professionals that we tell everyone it's a lifelong journey in the wealth building. This isn't like all of a sudden XRP goes to $1 million and you're set for life and you have no more issues. That's not how this works. Like, this is always an ongoing situation. But I mean, to the whole point of money mindset is, in the things that we want to push to clients the most, is majority of all of the issues it's mentally related. It's psychology. That's the root of who we are and what you need to lean on professionals for. Yes, there is still the strategic ways of getting investments and doing all that. That's fine. But I believe our industry is changing more towards the fact that we need to help people on that level way more than we need to open up a brokerage account or a Roth IRA, right? Because that's just the means to what we have. But if they don't understand and get that on the front side, then no matter what we do on the back side is not going to either make them wealthy, healthy, happy, or any of that. And they might end up screwing up the whole plan because they made that emotional decision and we didn't address that situation.
Let me jump into this thought real quick. I think part of it is people's general belief about money. I think what I've seen is a lot of times it's really negative, and I don't understand that. Well, that's part of been an education process. To your point, like part of that has been an education process. I think there's some cultures and people that do better at this than others. Part of it could be, if you like people who have money, typically their kids, like, they can develop, not always, but I'd say on a higher percentage, they develop a little more healthy mindsets around it. But I'd like to come back to that core around money and like, what does that really mean to me? I think for me, just personally in this journey, I've narrowed it down to like, money really is connection. Money is connection and relationships. And you can leverage that in a business life and a family life. The relationships are important no matter where you go. There's the security part of it, sure. But at the end of the day, it's like this whole system of money, this economy that we might say. What is it really? Money is great because it connects people. It brings people together. Like, it gives us the incentive to come on here and talk to each other and to add to the conversation, add to the human experience, or whatever you want to call it. Like, again, coming to the spiritual side of it a little bit. I think there's some negative cultural, maybe it's Western, I don't know, maybe it's like Catholic, Christian, something like, maybe it's mindsets have come down like generationally around money that are maybe not the healthiest. That, like, I think money is a pretty great thing, if it's put in its context and what it can bring to your life, which I think is better relationships at the end, more relationship, more of that. And that's what I keep trying to talk to people in the XRP community about. It's like, you've got to like turn this from like an investment that can go way up into like, this is my family, this is my life, this is the things that I want to accomplish in the world. This is what this actually means. It's not about a return on investment is irrelevant. This is about you. How do you convert that into like what actually matters? I think that's, just a side of this conversation that needs to be had.
Absolutely. And if all of the lottery winners had that mindset, where would their families be? Where would the world be really in regards to that? I think you nailed it there. And I saw this quote today, and I don't know where it was, but it really resonates even more so now, is your network equals your net worth, right? Your community, your relationships is what your net worth's about. Like, that's your true wealth. Because that's what life's for. That's what humans want. We want interaction. We want to be able to communicate. We want community feel. We want family. That doesn't mean I have $6 trillion. That has nothing to do with the dollar.
Well, people that live the longest, I mean, they've done research on this. There's some food they're eating, but two, they're also part of a community. there's a sense of belonging and a sense of family and friends, all of that. And I think that's important. And it, again, is intertwined with, money's intertwined with family, community. You talked about I'm thinking about like purpose has been popping in my head. Like, what's my purpose here on planet Earth in my short amount of time? What can I do with my time, with my money that can make a difference? And I think those conversations are much more interesting to me when I'm working with clients.
Yeah, and there's a technical side of it too, like Stoy said, but I also want to bring up, like, what is the most important metric? What is the most important thing that we're working towards? You know, is it to maximize the net worth? Is that, or is it maximize return on investment, or whatever it is? I really think that's a pretty easy argument against that. And I think there's even data that would support this argument that your goal probably shouldn't be to become the wealthiest person, you know, in your neighborhood or community. And it's always going to be somebody wealthier anyways. So, you know, just deal. But I think there's a space to say, like, to start your money conversation really starts at, like, okay, what type of relationships do you want to have in your life? And I think that's where it does come back to the emotions questions, where it's like, a lot of people I don't even think can picture themselves having good relationships. And it's sad to say that, but I think it has to be said that, like, they don't think in terms of relationship. Like you said earlier, money drives them. They're driven by money. They cannot convert the money thinking into, like, what actually will make you happy at the end of the day. And I think that's a sad thing that I don't know if that's educatable, if you can become aware of that and change that. I think you should be able to, but I wonder if it's education there, or if that's more of like like Lisa said earlier, almost like a spiritual thing there.
Yeah, I believe anything, well, not anything, but I believe that can be learned. But if it's created in the right environment, right, from you're being born and your parents and through schooling and all of that, because at some point, like, those people learned something, right? I believe the money thing is more learned issue than it is a fundamental, like, genetics, right? I don't think people are born with the gene to all of a sudden become a billionaire. And if they are, then we need to do research on that. I just believe that those people have been, the negative ones have been rooted in a community or growing up in a way that didn't allow the other side. And those that are truly living wealthy, which is happy, they might not even be millionaires, but they're good in life. That's true wealth, have been able to be raised or taught in a different loving community. You take a lot of what we're talking about is probably the Western community. Like, let's be real, it's Western world. But you take like India or Japan, where there was people living in well into their hundreds and are happier in hell, but they're poor, right, from a money standpoint, but are wealthy in life because of how they were raised and the community that's around them. That's different than someone who was put into a negative standpoint. All their family cared about was money. They went to school just to learn how to make money, and now they're deeply rooted into this thing where money is end all be all, when really it's relationships.
Yeah, that's a pretty sad story that you gave about the person who's just like, money is end all be all. Like, it really is kind of sad to me. That makes me sad. Like, I don't think that sounds happy to me.
No.
Not that, but to your point also, like, I think there, and something I kind of said earlier, which is like the spiritual / financial is pretty separated in the Western world. It's almost like a dichotomy. You know, money is the root of all evil. It's thrown around a lot. It's not necessarily in the Bible, but it's there thrown around a lot. We all have heard that. You know, and it's funny because the people of the Bible, the Jewish people, I'm just going to go here. I personally have studied their culture quite a bit, and I am very fascinated by it. But I think they have super healthy mindsets around money. Not as, you can't speak for a whole culture, of course not. But like, their religious teachings around money, don't view it as a negative thing. They kind of put it into the context of it's a positive for the community to have more interaction. And there is a lot of like charitable side of their religion as well, like making sure that you do take care of the poor and making sure that you are a generous person. Like, it's more than what I've experienced in Christianity. you know, and that is what drives the Western world more, is Christianity than Judaism. They both have their influence, but I do think that that's interesting, that in my study as an outsider and not Jewish, so I obviously don't have the full picture, but what I've seen in some of their teachings is that they have put a more positive mindset around what it means to make money from that almost community perspective of money. Just gonna drop that. I know that's touchy subjects today.
No, I was just thinking like, well, I'm just thinking of all the negative connotation that people say about the Jewish community, like they're penny pinchers, right? Like all of that stuff, and you
Jewish
just
people are the most generous people in the world.
Right. When you started like laying that out, I started just going through it all, and I'm like, no, they care more about community and relationships, and that's where all their decisions and most of that's driven. Some outsiders, like the Western world, would see that as penny pinching, when the others, when they're actually truly is giving back as much as possible, but they're not just spending money to spend it. They're doing it through their relationships and their community. And I believe we all can learn a lesson there. Take care of others, and your life will be just good, right? I think we can agree there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak on that totally, because I'm not an authority on this. Like, I read a good book about this, but it's like Daniel Lapin, he's a Jewish guy, and some of it I like, some of it I don't. But I think he was a rabbi, and so I'm kind of, some of that I'm pulling from his book and saying, like, you know, I thought he did have some good ideas about like how Judaism positions, and I think you can pull this out of religion and pull this into like practicality, into a non-religious setting. What he said in there is like, you have to get this mindset in your head that like money is good, and money and earning money is good, and you have to kind of see where, like, how that goes, because I think that, like, to your point at the beginning, it's like we get educated with these negative ideas, and some of that is actually just a negative belief about, if I make money, I'm a negative person, or like making money is not good. We see it all in Hollywood. The bad guy's always the business guy. Like, but it's like there's a real positive side to earning money as well. And I think that gets lost a lot in the popular culture.
Yeah, I agree.
I know we all should be saying money is good from, age 5 on up, and just keep talking about it.
Right. Let's just be positive about it.
You can do so much good with money in your communities. And I think we get, as is popular culture, you get caught up in what's happened in the negative, or there's some kind of story of somebody did something not good with money, and that's what everyone remembers. But there's so much good happening, and you do need money to do a lot of that good.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an awesome point. And I'll bring this back to my household, like my personal experience on this one. Like I said, I had a super healthy family relationship. But one thing we didn't talk about and didn't do a lot of is, like, at 5 years old, talking about money. That conversation did not happen. And then I'm not going to knock my parents for it. Like, they're awesome. I have more realistic perspective now being a parent. But I think that's more of a cultural thing for us in the Western world, that like, that would make a big difference. I think to Stoy's original point when he posted this thread, it's like, if you're having that conversation, you start developing that healthy mindset around how money is a force for good in the world, and how you can use it as a force for good in the world if you use it correctly. If you have that conversation with your kids, well, you just move them into a different arena of like what becomes possible in their lives.
Absolutely.
Which gives me great hope.
Yes.
For the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little ones.
I do too. And yes, selfishly, it's because of our industry. This movement of independent RAs, RA space in general movement of moving towards these conversations is what we're hearing a lot of. That gives me hope that our industry can really start to make a movement to help people, as opposed to just charging AUM, getting them investments, and here you go. There's a lot more onus on us, I believe, which means, yes, the CFP board and all those needs to up our education when it comes to that side. But I'm really excited for our industry to really help more so. Now, the flip side of that is people need to be open and willing to take that on, right? I mean, going through that process, we've seen it a lot with our VIP day. And Josh, if you're not aware, our VIP day is for business owners. It's 5.5 hours intense in the office or one-on-ones basically of going through everything. And we root through as much trauma as we can, right, is what gets pulled out. And it's exhausting, it's tiresome, but it's once you break through that, then you can come to light with what's going on. And I believe
where do you start that conversation? Like what is the, like, how do you even start? That sounds like a bear of a conversation.
Oh, it
awesome
is.
One to have.
Yeah.
But like, where do you start?
Lisa alluded to it. What's your first remembrance of what money is? And it's all childhood related. I mean, that's where it comes from. And then they just keep going, right? Then it just takes off from there. But what's your first memory of money? Good, bad, or indifferent? And then you just discuss, like, why was it good? Why was it bad? And then we just keep layering those questions of, like, you know, even today, when you buy that cup of coffee or you go to the grocery store, when you see that bill, what's that emotion that you feel? Is it anxiety? Is your chest like closing up? Well, guess what? You probably have a negative money mindset. Or is it like, I'm buying groceries for my family. I can't wait to go cook. Like it doesn't even register. Now you control your money. That's kind of those easy questions that people can ask themselves.
You said easy questions.
Easy to ask yourself. I didn't say to answer.
I was like, easy to ask.
Easy to ask.
Not easy to answer.
Very hard to answer.
Yeah, but
and it's such a moving. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I would say it's a moving target. Like we've seen, you know, you have a good 5 years and then something happens and then it's brought you right back to negative mindset, or you've got a new job and you're making more money, and so there's all these different factors at play and different stages of life at play.
What does a healthy mindset around money look like? What do you guys, what have you seen that in like practice where somebody really develops like a really healthy mindset around money? And then like, what is the end game? Like, what does that look like?
You got an answer?
You go first.
Okay.
I'll go.
One, I don't think there's an end game. Okay. Ultimately, it's something that we're always working towards. Just like every relationship, just like your health, it is something that is an ongoing battle. What does it look like? I've seen it for extended periods of time here and there. What does it look like? It looks like that person is just happy. They're focused on their relationships. Really, that's all they talk about. There's not a lot of negativity going on in their life, right? There's not a lot of car accidents, not a lot of health problems. There's not a lot of job changes. That person is just living life. And some people might say that that person is poor or whatever, but that, when I've seen it, is they're happy. They don't even really discuss, like, in terms of the actual dollar. They just know that this is the next movement to get to where they want to go. For example, one of our clients just last week, I love the hell out of her, but she's like, hey, I need some more in my savings and I got to pay this bill. I'm like, cool, we'll move the money and it's done. It was never a question of, do I have enough? What's going on? Am I going to survive? Like, it's just, yeah, this is what needs to happen. Okay, we're going to go forward with it. And there's no, you don't see or feel that just weight, right? You can see it in people. You don't see that weight sitting on them when you discuss or say the word money.
The visual of a weight, I'm thinking about like the heaviness. You can tell a heavy sense of heaviness, I think, with people when you're having conversations. You can tell more, I would say, light, like more, just more flexible, adaptable in their thinking, which goes back into the mindset. There's the growth mindset, just being able to adapt to different situations and emotionally. So this is where it is like full circle for me, like emotionally healthy, physically healthy, like all of those things with the money intertwined. Emotionally, they're doing well, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's where we get into some challenges. I know I have a perfectionism issue.
No,
I do.
Not at all.
So everything's had to be this certain way, perfect this way, but life doesn't go that way. So I still think you can be in a really good space and not everything's perfect or not everything's where you want it to be. And you can still strive for things, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you guys, like, and this is a lot of the people that I work with. I'm not the only one here. Investing in XRP has been a a grueling investment. Like especially because a lot of people, including myself, are more concentrated than is prudent. I learned it, and they won't change their mind on it either.
Right.
So,
my word of the day is prudent.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with prudent.
Keep that in mind. It's the law. But I will say that, it has, it's tough to maintain an emotional stability, not even just stability, but like positivity when you are experiencing money challenges. And I'll just say, like, from our end, it's been tough. This last market has been tough. The investment hasn't gone anywhere yet. It could go to zero, so it puts an extra stress on there, and I think it's good to have experience, what people really do experience. So, but I think, like, I'm just curious as you guys' thoughts, like, when you're dealing with somebody who's not there yet, obviously there's prudent actions you can take to get there.
Right.
But it's like, how do you navigate the space where maybe you don't have all the security and all the, where you maybe just didn't earn enough to get there? Or how do you navigate that emotionally? Or do you just need to get better at earning money, get in a better place?
Well, there is always, earn more money, right? We say this a lot, is we want them to put that weight on us as much as possible. Like conversation we just had this week about buying a home, right? They came to us first, not the bank, not the real estate, none of that, because they needed to know, are they good or are they not, right?
Yeah.
Now, mathematically, everyone can figure that out themselves, really. It's basic math at the end of the day. But they need more of that emotional support of like reliance and like getting it off their decision making. And that's what we tell them to do, is like, not just because we have the experience and can see it all and aren't as emotionally involved, that is part of it, but also is, if you are personally not healthy, ready, and 100% and all of that, then put it on someone that you can trust, and it'll help you balance that out. It'll take some of that weight off to lift you up, so now you can see a little more clearly. Maybe you can understand and learn a little bit more, and then when maybe it's time and you're like, hey, I'm good, okay, well, the weight's back on you. Or it just allows you to grow as a person more because you aren't weighted down, right? Some of that weight is lifted, so I can stand taller. I can do all of these things, as opposed to I'm getting crushed, I can't do it, right? That I can't do it mindset, because there's too much going on, too many decisions, too much weight. That's how we tell clients, hey, put it on us. That's what we're here for.
I think another perspective is, yes, we can take on their weight, but what do they need to be doing individually or as a couple to kind of continue to move through this emotional space? And I also think it's important for them to have some kind of action where they can build momentum and feel like they can make positive change. So for me, we've kind of given clients small steps, like, yes, you have this goal of this in 5 years, but what can we do today or this week or next month to kind of start getting there? And I think some of those small action steps can also help with the emotional, like, I'm moving forward, I'm doing something. And you got to have that. For me, you got to have both kind of happening, because if you don't, you're missing that feeling you need them to capture.
I think one of the words you said earlier, just to kind of like bring this conversation full circle in a lot of ways too, was adaptability. It's not like one of the most like obvious emotions that we even think about, like in terms of like, I just like name an emotion, like you would never say like adaptability, like,
right?
Oh, that'll be high on the list at least. But I think I totally agree with what you said earlier, was like how important that emotion is. And I'm not sure if that is an educated, I'm like Stoy said, I think, yeah, there is learning that can be done in any area. So yeah, like if you're not very flexible, you got, like, I think with this journey with money, you're going to go super secure. If you're not flexible, I would go super secure, like try to do very risk averse things. But if most people don't do that, so having that adaptability, that flexibility, not only just a change with like the swinging markets and stuff, but also life changes. Everybody goes through those, and they even if you have a lot of money, you can't shield yourself from that stuff. Like that adaptability, and how it relates to your money, I think it's huge.
Yeah. Agreed. So
Yeah.
we can wrap this up, but I will say one thing about all the things that we did. When you're doing things positively, you're adapting, you're in that momentum, there's something to say about luck, that the ball bounces in your favor a little more often, or you feel like it does.
That earlier. I was wondering if you thought that was causal, like when you were talking about the person who's kind of like in that zone, and you said like things don't happen that as much as they would happen for maybe somebody else. It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Kind of getting that vibe that you almost think it's causal.
Yeah. That's that whole point. That's, for me, spirituality. There's something out there to say that when things are going well, they keep going well. And when things are going shitty, they keep going shitty. To me, that's a part of luck that we just don't know.
That's a universal thing. I agree. You bring, I'm going to use a spiritual word. You bring stuff into your vortex, and then things start rolling whichever way you've kind of decided to roll.
Absolutely.
It's interesting conversation. We'll stay here for one more minute.
Okay.
The Irish call it luck, I'm pretty sure. But and there's all types of different beliefs around it. In the Jewish perspective, it's called mazel. You know, you ever heard them say mazel tov?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this means like good luck, but it's mazel's a little bit different. And it's like a universal force. But there's almost like these weird guidelines around it. Whether it's true or not is a different story. But like, do some people just get born with bad luck? I guess that's the question.
Right.
Have you seen it? Can you change your luck? Can you control your mazel? Like, I mean, can you lean into that universal force, even if you don't, there's no clear guideline on it, like if that's available, how you would lean into that. But if hypothetically you could, what would you do to lean into that? What would you guys do to lean into that?
I have no idea.
So I personally believe you can lean into that universal force, but it's like a daily practice where you're, it could be visualizing what you're looking for, money, career, life, everything intertwined. It could be writing it down. It could be saying money is good. Like, I believe all those things work because I've seen them happen in the sports field. I've seen them happen in other places, and I do a lot of research around that. So I think some of it's a belief in yourself. Can I actually do this? And if these are some of the action steps I'm taking, is this going to help me? So you have to have some inherent belief that you're going to be able to make that change and difference in your own self.
All right, one more question.
No.
Because I'm working with it. Sorry. All right, no.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
So, like, I was working with a guy I worked with yesterday, and we were laying out, like, battle plans if extra people were to go up. Like, what would be the actions? Because the emotions would be stupid, crazy emotions, right? So how you navigate in that space. And after we started talking, just talked through it, he said, yeah, but I was like, this probably will be completely false by the time we get there, But he said, yeah, but we're visualizing, like on a battlefield or on a sports field, like a race car driver goes around the track in their mind a million times. Mm-hmm. Like, they can do that. It's like, I wonder, it also just then bring it back to our profession, like working with a financial planner. Does that have an impact in that way as well? Just like by being able to visualize some of these things, does it set anchors into the future as far as, what actually the outcome of it as well? I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
No, that's a great way to leave it. And maybe next time we hit upon that more, but I know for a fact that I've seen it from clients working with us before, but we'll leave it at that until next time, part 2, whatever we call it. But Josh, Barbin, thanks for being on and being the first guest of the second season of the Money Mindset series. You can reach out to him I know you're on Twitter. What other socials? We'll get them out there, but you got Twitter for sure.
Yeah, go ahead and get on Twitter. That's something I really pick.
Okay, fine. He only Twitter, folks. That's it. That's all him. But we'll blast this out there. We'll make sure to do that. Go ahead and go to alternativep.com. If you're in the XRP world, if you just want to pick his brain, I'm sure he's available. Again, reach out to us if you want to contact him. We are here. But No BS Wealth Podcast is around money and your money mindset. This is the root of our podcast, and having other guests on here to have these discussions to hopefully in your life change it or allow you to be like, hey, I'm good. I want to move forward with somebody because what you guys are saying is great. and we can connect you with any FP that you really wanted that fits you. We are here for you. So Josh, thank you again, sir.
It's been awesome. Thanks.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.